Harold has made landfall in Texas. Hello, I'm Mike Naso with the latest on the tropics. Looking at this beautiful satellite image of our two tropical cyclones, Tropical Storm Harold, over Texas right now. It came ashore mid-morning down there in South Texas, and it was really cranking up right at the end. And had it had even 12 more hours, maybe less, Harold would have been a hurricane over Padre Island. It came ashore. It's bringing rainfall that is somewhat beneficial, but very strong winds. Corpus Christi had a wind gust approaching hurricane force. On the right side of the screen down here is Tropical Storm Franklin, which is the opposite of Harold. It's very, very disorganized, and it is not expected to become a hurricane before impacting the Dominican Republic. Here's the latest on Harold as of 10 a.m. Central Time. Harold was at 27.1 north, 97.4 west, winds of 50, and again, there's always higher gusts than what the maximum sustained winds are. So if it's 50 miles an hour, you'll get gusts over 65, 70 miles an hour, and that's what we have. It's moving west-northwest very quickly at 21 miles per hour, and again, we have those tropical storm warnings out for the coast. They are being impacted right now in Texas by tropical storm conditions. Look at this radar image. Watch how it started to develop the eye wall right there at the end. This thing was trying to form an eye. It was trying to become a hurricane right there. And that is obviously a situation to where had Harold done this yesterday, it would have for sure been a hurricane at landfall. Thankfully, it ran out of time and is pushing this moisture right on through South Texas. But there is a rainfall flood risk anytime you have heavy rains like this. You could see flooding down there in areas of northern Mexico and southern Texas. So some areas might need the rain, but you don't need the wind, and you don't need flooding either. There's the rainfall forecast. 2 to 4 inches, isolated amounts of 6. Now, the reason this isn't even higher than that is because of how fast Harold's sliding right up, and that is good news that it's going to bring rain, but not sit and stall and spin and drop copious amounts of devastating rainfall. But there is still a slight flood risk. Areas there of Laredo, Corpus, Brownsville, South Texas, down near Padre Island. The system came ashore near Kennedy County in Padre Island, Texas. So not a very heavily populated area, but it doesn't matter because this is a spread out tropical storm, so those winds are impacting downtown Corpus. Texas A&M had a wind gust of up to 65 miles per hour there in Corpus Christi. So again, a very good blow from a tropical storm in South Texas. The key messages from the National Hurricane Center: heavy rainfall expected across South Texas through early Wednesday. That may produce areas of flash and urban flooding across portions of northern areas of Mexico, flash flooding, possible landslides and mountainous terrain. Again, that area is susceptible to that, even with a fast-moving tropical storm like Harold. Secondly, coastal flooding is possible through South Texas along the afternoon hours and the evening. We do have a water rise. It's not much, 2 to 3 feet, but wherever you have that onshore flow along the Texas coast, you can see water rises. And obviously, tropical storm conditions are expected to continue in that warning area the next several hours. Because Harold has cranked up so nicely there at the end, it's going to take a while for those winds to calm down now that it's realized it doesn't have a shot at becoming a hurricane. But man, strengthening into landfall is different than weakening into landfall, I'll tell you, because those winds are really bursting and causing issues. There's the latest in Spanish. Tropical Storm Franklin, as of 11 a.m. Eastern Time, it was at 15.5 north, 71.1 west, winds of 50, just like Harold, but it does not look as good as Harold, even though it's over water. Moving northwest at 7. This thing has not moved a whole lot. It's still north of the ABC Islands and the South American coastline. It is expected to make landfall on Wednesday over the Dominican Republic. We have a tropical storm warning along the coast of Haiti and the Dominican, and tropical storm watches for the north coast of the Dominican and the Turks and Caicos Islands, even though the wind field is relatively narrow, and if it takes this track, winds might not even clip the Turks and Caicos, but it could spread out after it hits land and weakens. Once it's out in the Atlantic, it should eventually be steered northward, and we would have it strengthen into a Category 1 hurricane south of Bermuda, and eventually head on out. That's the thinking right now. But again, taking a look at this satellite imagery, the exposed center of Harold is right in here, and it's right on the edge of the thunderstorm activity and very unfavorable conditions. That's why Harold is not a hurricane. All this time over the warm Caribbean Sea in August, and it has not had a chance to become a hurricane because of this relentless wind shear from the southwest really ripping into it. That is causing some rainfall here on the eastern side, and so if you're in Puerto Rico, there is an enhanced rainfall and flood threat as the system pools to the north and eventually the northeast. The key messages, as I mentioned, heavy rainfall across Puerto Rico and Hispaniola into Thursday. That could produce areas of flash and urban flooding, as well as river rises and mudslides. Those areas are very third world, especially in Hispaniola. And across Hispaniola, significant and potentially life-threatening flash flooding is possible throughout Tuesday and Wednesday. Secondly, Franklin is going to bring tropical storm conditions to the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and we have the tropical storm warnings in effect. And again, if you're in the Turks and Caicos Islands, keep an eye just in case those winds clip you. Out in the eastern Atlantic, we were watching Emily, that's gone. Gert is gone. We were watching this invest area, but it's really not showing much. It's not that favorable. This could potentially develop down in a couple of days as it moves to the west-northwest throughout the Atlantic basin. And then this wave was looking better yesterday, but it still hasn't left yet. Watch this area as it moves off. Some of the long-range models show that we could have something moving off Africa as we approach the first week of September. Also keep an eye here in the Eastern Pacific and the Southwestern Caribbean. The European model wants to drag a feature over Honduras and Nicaragua, over the Yucatan, and into the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and some of the models show a hurricane impact close to Labor Day weekend along the Florida Panhandle. So we're going to watch this area down here just in case, because that sometimes happens. But usually that happens later in the year. Like I said in yesterday's video, these tracks, because of El Nino, are very October-like. This Franklin track is something you'd see in October, and a track out of the Caribbean like that is something you'd probably see in October, but it's August, so we'll wait and see. Obviously, today the focus is on South Texas with the impacts of Harold. So again, a busy time in the Atlantic tropics. We'll watch as Harold's moisture pushes inland, and we'll watch as Franklin impacts Hispaniola, and we'll keep an eye on the rest of the tropics. I'm Mike Naso. Stay tuned, please subscribe, and I will talk to you next time.